Good morning. I believe most of you know who I am. In case you don't, my name is Russ Earl. I am the new director of OABS. Of course, you may know that Chuck was the director until last year, until he resigned because of his health. But Chuck and I are still, Chuck, of course, is still living in Claremore. He is sitting there in Oologah and is doing well. He resigned because of his health, but he is doing very well. I say all the ice cream he eats is keeping him preserved, but he is doing well, and we're still in Oologah. We are in the process of moving up to be where we can attend there in Chipman, there in Lee Summit. Our house in Oklahoma is in contract. We're trying to find a place up here, but things move a lot faster up here than they do down in Oklahoma right now. And so we do ask you to keep us in your prayers for that. This morning, I am going to give a report of OABS. I know this congregation is very familiar with it, obviously, but I do want to kind of give some update and report. And for those who aren't as familiar with it, there are some things in here, just general things about the school itself. OABS has already began its enrollment for the fall semester. We began back in June, at the end of June, and the first day of class starting August 5th. At my last count, we have about 20 or so students who are returning for their second or third, fourth year, and then we have about 15 who are enrolling, and some who are still trying to get enrolled. And so we're looking at probably about 35 to 40 at least, and we still have about a week or so to go. And so it is going well in that way. So we're thankful for that. And a lot of this I'm not going to go too in depth on, because I know, again, this is where OABS was for a long, long time with Ted and Trent, obviously. So most of you are very familiar with it. But just in way of introduction, and much of this is on our website. You may have noticed, if you haven't looked on it in a while, our website has changed. We've done a lot of updating and some tweaking on some things, and we'll talk more about that later in the report. But the material is all the same that's on the website. This is just introduction material to OABS. As you see there, it is the primary focus of OABS is to train preachers. But because it is an academy and not just a preacher training school exclusively, that means anyone can take classes with OABS. When Chuck was directing, he started the weeknight classes, and so there's more for us to look at as well. But for those who don't want to take the classes on Saturday, maybe they're too in depth, or maybe they just don't want to do it for whatever reason. Our weeknight classes are more of an overview, which we'll talk about later. And they're Monday and Tuesday night classes. They're only 1 hour classes. There's 3 right now on Monday night and 2 on Tuesday night. We've added one that's kind of interesting. A good buddy of mine is teaching a class on song leading. And so there are some practical things there on those. But the Poe Joy is teaching a class on homiletics, which is all around preparing lessons, preparing sermons. That is partly for our Saturday students, but also for anyone else who wants some help in how to prepare classes and sermons and things of that nature. We have, I think, I want to say 10 to 15, if I remember correctly. I've had a lot of numbers in my head lately, but about 10 to 15 who have enrolled for our weeknight classes. And so we're very thankful for that as well. But OABS, its primary focus has always been to be a preacher training school. But again, anyone can take classes. Ladies can take classes as well. Of course, there are a few classes that are exclusive to men, such as song leading and sermon preparation. I've had one person ask me about the song leading class for ladies. And I said, well, while the class itself is just for men, it doesn't mean you can't go back and watch it on your own, because we have those events like Ladies' Days and such as that. And so maybe a sister would like to look at that. And so you can still view those things as well. OABS is available to anyone in the world who has a reliable internet. In my experience over the last 2 years, I've seen a big jump in internet availability throughout the world. Because of things like mobile devices that have internet that you can get included in with your bill, things like that. People are able to access OABS even more. It was kind of interesting that this past semester, individual from somewhere in Africa, before classes were started, he mistakenly had his camera on, And while he was out there, you can see him very clearly in his village on a little dirt road, sitting in his chair with his mobile device propped up, and he's watching OABS. Because again, internet has advanced to the degree that it is available more, because of things like satellite and various other things of internet being put in various places. It's becoming more and more available. Not only now is satellite a thing, but of course, mobile devices with wireless internet that can do that. And that's what he was doing in the middle of nowhere, Africa. I don't remember where he was at. But so it's available to anyone, and it's becoming more and more available. We actually had someone contact me here recently, and we're still talking to them, who is trying to get a whole group in his congregation to take some classes. Now they're over in another country. They don't have them themselves, for a reason, don't all have reliable internet, and so we're trying to work out a way to help them take classes with OABS as well. And so the reach is wide, and because we are on the internet, we can have students from anywhere, and we do. We have students from all over, and it's sometimes when you read their notes or their emails, you have to put together, because they don't speak English that great, understandably, because they're in a different country. You have to read a little bit broken English and figure out what they're trying to say. But we're glad to have them with us. There are individuals, as you see here on the screen, again, this is just like what's on their website, who want to attend such a school, but they're not able to attend a brick and mortar school. Now, I got gas this morning, and it was $3.25. And we know with things like we were talking about before class, the housing market and things such as that, it is hard to move and to go somewhere that requires you to physically be there, such as a preacher training school. And so OABS, like what I tell people is, you don't need gas money for OABS. You don't need to move. You don't need to raise funds. You just need to turn on your computer and use probably what you already have and become a part of OABS, which is a big, big deal. As prices go up on other things, OABS has been really, in many ways, barely affected at all by any of that. And so we're thankful for that. But OABS was created for those who want to attend a school but are unable to attend a physical, what we call a brick and mortar school. What a student can expect, as always, the classes are live and interactive, which means you're not just watching a video. I tell people when they're applying, this is not a Bible correspondence course. This is not something you listen to and you fill out some questions and you mail it in. This is a Bible class. They're able to interact. Even between live sessions, they're able to turn on their camera and their audio, and they can actually talk and see the instructor can see them, so they can talk about things. We do it in between classes, so we don't have students on our video, but they can talk and see one another and clarify any questions they may have had. And so it is truly interactive. It's not just simply watching a video. They can ask questions, they can make comments, all those types of things. Instructors, many of our instructors use PowerPoint like you're seeing here today. So they're able to put up notes. They're able to share all types of material with the students. And so it is, there used to be a time that when you talk about something that was online, like a school, people would kind of smile. That doesn't happen anymore, because online schooling, before COVID, it was a true thing. And during and after COVID, it became a very big thing, and still is. And so the kind of smiling and saying, well, online schools that's really gone by the wayside, because there are so many people who are actually moving to this. And OABS is interactive. It is all online. It is not something to take lightly, as we tell all of our students who are or individuals who are trying to enroll. OABS does take 4 years to complete. If you were to take all the classes on Saturday, there's 4 classes available, you would complete it in 4 years. And whenever a new student applies, I always encourage them, please don't try to take 4 classes. Take 2, take even 1 the first semester. See what you think, see how much you can handle, and then you can always take more classes the next time. Because what happens so many times is people will get in there the gung-ho, which is great. They'll take 4 classes, and week 3, they're saying, I can't do all this. And we have to say, okay, we'll just pick 1 or 2, and then let's see how this goes. And so it is an intense study. A school year consists of 2 semesters, each containing 18 weeks. Again, it's only on Saturday. People sometimes, we talk to them about a Saturday school, they say, well, Saturday is my only day to take off or whatever, which in many cases, it's really not. Most of us in our jobs, not all of us, but we get to have the evenings off. And it's nice to be able to say on a Saturday that I don't have to leave my home and I can take Bible classes free of charge, 1 or 4, whatever it may be, and I can take them and not interrupt my activities during the week, right? I mean, colleges typically are Mondays through Fridays. Sometimes you have evening classes, but being on a Saturday, it avoids a lot of the interruptions you have during the week. And so it is a good thing. A student is required to complete 56 semester hours. The classes will be intense and demanding several hours of study outside of class each week. Whenever a student applies, Brother Chuck was doing this, and I just kept it going because I thought it was a good idea, is that he would send them a letter. It was a letter of intent. And basically it was, look, this is for real. I'm going to paraphrase it. This is for real. This is a very intense study, and that we check references. Not everybody gets in because some folks want to get in there and when they want to try to stir up trouble. And so we check references. We ask people to list references. And so we remind them this is a very intense and demanding thing. And most will say, okay, I still want to pursue it. And some will say, never mind. And to be honest, we want them, they're not sure, we want them to say never mind. Because if they get in there, they may get discouraged and they may not want to come back. But if they stop and take a step back and reevaluate, maybe they might come back in the future. What OABS provides, as we've already mentioned, is not just a preacher training school. It's for anyone, whether you're talking about a member who is just wanting to learn more, talking about a Bible class teacher, a song leader, elder, deacon, whoever. Preachers' wives, it's for everyone. And so it is a way to grow in knowledge, regardless if you're wanting to be a preacher or not. There may be those who are unable to attend a full-time preaching school, but OABS can benefit them greatly in their studies and prepare them for various roles within the local congregation. Our studies, this is a reference to Saturdays. Our Saturday classes are college level. You can go online and look at all the syllabuses, and you can see what each class requires. And some of them are more intense than others, but it's not something that's what I would call a Bible correspondence course level type of thing. All of our instructors combined, we have over 150 years of preaching and teaching experience. I like to say sometimes we're not talking about just Chuck, but the requirements of OABS will be demanding in time and effort. Not everyone who will have the work ethic or the desire to undertake such an endeavor. So for that reason, we are interested in those who are serious and who want to grow in the faith. That's not to say that people who have less time or cannot handle intense studies cannot take classes, because they can. Classes offered. I'm not going to talk about all these because there's so many of them. But this is your freshman classes. So if you're a new student, depending on when you enroll, this would be your selection of classes. General introduction to the Old and New Testament, the fall, of course, being what we're about to start. Principles of interpretation, which is a 2-part class. Apologetics, or we might call it Christian evidences, and then first principles, which to me, when I look at that, I think that's a great lineup, because if you're a first-year student, that is a great base. You get a general introduction to the whole Bible. Brother Zach teaches that class, I don't know if you knew that or not. Principles of interpretation talks about how we approach the Bible in our studies, not going to it to try to prove what we already think is right, but going to it to try to see what actually the Bible says and having the heart to change where we need to. Apologetics, again, Christian evidences, dealing with the existence of God and things such as that. And first principles is dealing with first principles of Christianity, really, and becoming a Christian, being a Christian, all those types of things. And so a good list there. And then you have the spring for freshman classes as well. Synoptics, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. The second part of the principles of interpretation, the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, obviously, and then general epistles. And then you have the second year or your sophomore classes. You can see them all listed there. Acts, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, Joshua, Judges, and Ruth, the New Testament church are all for this fall, starting here in August. And then the fourth year or junior classes, you have prison epistles, you have Isaiah, and denominational doctrines. Now, Isaiah is one of our 3-hour classes. And what is so interesting to me, when you hear a 3-hour class, you think, man, that's a long time to be in a class. That is one of our most popular classes is Isaiah. Our classes are every class, no matter how long it is, if it's 1, 2, or 3 hours, you get a 10-minute break after 50 minutes. And so it doesn't work out to be full 3 hours. It's more, I think it's 2.5, but you get a 10-minute break each time. And so, but Isaiah is one of the most sought after classes. People ask, well, how soon can we take that? And then you have the fourth year or your senior classes. You have Old Testament books of poetry, Godhead, the second part of the Godhead, 1 Corinthians, and Zephaniah, and Malachi. And so those are all the classes we offer. Again, all this is on our website as well. OABS does provide other resources. And not only are we known for being a school, but we're also known for all the stuff that's on our website. Because we are transitioning to a new website and a little bit different system, some things are still being added to the new website and things. I've gotten emails from people asking about where something is, and we'll just go ahead and put it online for them. But what that pointed out to me is that OABS is a great study tool, not just with the preacher, not just with the school itself, but it's a great study tool because of all the things that are on there, such as meetings and lectureships, Bible classes from previous years. When we were backing things up, we were going back to 2020. I think there even were a few things from 2018. I'm not sure why they're on there, but they were there. That's over 20 years of Bible classes taught by various people. And it is a great study reference. When someone asks me, hey, do you have any good material on such and such? I'll tell them, go to OABS and watch some classes. That's one of the best things you can do. The teacher, majority of the time, will list his classes by whatever chapter they're studying, and they can go to a particular chapter. But I always tell them, just watch the whole thing. And then they're done and say, no, go enroll as a student. But it is a great study tool. Weeknight classes, as I said before, are available. These classes are more overview in nature and are not as demanding as the Saturday classes. That is not meant to be as if saying that these are easier, but they are more overview, which is not a bad thing. Many times what happens is we have people enroll in a weeknight class, and they'll take a class, they might take 2, and then next thing you know, they're enrolling in the Saturday class because they want to go a little bit deeper with it. And so it's a great encouragement, but also we have families who, the mom or their dad will start studying. The next thing you know, they have their laptop on their kitchen table, and they have their child there with them. It is now a family Bible study. And so it has been a great tool to bring families together as well on the weeknights to do that. We've had kids who wanted to be a part of the weeknight class, and we let them majority of the time because their parents are doing it with them. And so they're there doing a family Bible study through OABS, which to me is a great thing to see and very, very encouraging. This next one you probably heard me talk about before, and that's Bible Way Media. OABS does labor alongside Bible Way Media, which is the online, the Bible-based podcast network that I started back in Illegal back in 2015. OABS does have its own podcast on there. Sometimes we just share sermons from some of our instructors. Other times we do interviews with our instructors where we talk to them. You'll get a chance to hear about them, learn more about them. And then we have a Bible study there with the instructor. And so it gives people a chance to get to know our guys a little bit better and see what they're like and encourage them, of course, to enroll in OABS. Some things that are new at OABS, in many ways, there are a lot of things that change, but at the same time, there are a lot of things that stayed exactly the same. Starting back in June of last year, someone asked me, what are you going to change when you get there? I said, what do you mean? I said, well, you're going to keep doing what you're doing. I said, if you mean teaching the Bible, then yes. Or do you mean having sound instructors? Yes. And so a lot of things stayed obviously the same. We did move to what we call a Google Classroom format. And one of the reasons we did that is because it's so user-friendly. And what we mean by that, and here's a page that shows you a little bit about it. These are lists of some of our classes, not all of them fit on the screen. But students, when they enroll now, they enroll through, we use a Google form, they enroll, and then after they go through all that, all of our classes are through the Google Classroom. We use something called Google Meet, which we'll talk about in a second, for our classes where we broadcast everything, where the setup, what's interesting is different, but it's still the same. Everything is broadcast through there, everything is recorded through there, all the PowerPoints are still would be shared if they'd like to. Instructors now, if they choose to do so using Google Classroom, they can create tests and quizzes using Google. They can put in there, if it's a multiple choice or something, they can put in what the right answer is, and the Google will just grade the quiz for them and tell you here's what the final grade was, here's the questions they missed, and they can do it that way, which saves the instructor some time, especially when you have 10 or 15 students in a class. Our first year classes get really bombarded with a lot of new students, obviously, and so something like that can really help. But we did move to that to help make things move just a little bit smoother and try to make things really not so much easier on our students as it is, but on our instructors. OABS for a long time was having 2 streams, which was just fine. But if you have an instructor who's somewhere who doesn't have tremendous internet speed, a 2 broadcasting at the same time can be very difficult. And so having one stream makes it easier and also makes their quality a little bit better as well, their video and things such as that. So we moved to the Google Classroom format. And we also, as I mentioned before, we use something called Google Meet for our classrooms and broadcasts. And it looks something like this. Now, this is a screenshot from a how-to video. I don't wear a t-shirt when I teach a class, but I don't have a video of me using Google Meet teaching the class yet because we haven't started yet. But you can see it looks very much the same. If you've ever taken a class with OABS, it looks very similar to this. You have the picture of the instructor there. You have, if you're sharing something there. What's really interesting, and I mentioned this to the elders, and I'm not really sure how the best way to implement it is, but using the new system we have, students can turn on closed captioning, and if they're from a different country, they can pick a language, and it will translate whatever the instructor is saying into that language, into Spanish and whatever. But it's a lot more than Spanish. There's a whole lot of things there. And I was testing that one day. Well, I thought, I'll just put on closed captioning and see how accurate it is. And it got everything word for word, word for word. I couldn't believe it. I mean, the downside is we don't know how it's translating things into other languages. But I do have some friends who speak Spanish who I do intend to test some things out on and see how accurate it is. Because if you're able to do that, we open up a whole new window of opportunity there as well. And so that's very encouraging as well. The last thing that's new is just the website. With moving to Google, we created a new website. And while it looks different, this is the front page of it. Everything that's on there is the same stuff as on the other website as well. We've been uploading all of our classes. We've been uploading lectureships and uploading videos from congregations. As you well know, many congregations broadcast through OABS, and some have broadcast from the very beginning. There are a lot of videos out there, but we're to the point now where we're just trying to link some things over, and it'll be very, very similar to what you saw before. And so looks a little bit different, but everything that's there is still the same. We have a link there for our podcast that folks can listen to directly from the website. Individuals can subscribe to our newsletter out there on the website as well. And so very, very similar to what we had before. The appearance is a little bit different, but everything, 90% of it is almost the same completely. Some frequently asked questions. And I'm amazed that this question is still asked because it's on our website, and people will email me and say, well, I've been through your website. How much does it cost? And my first thought is, well, I guess you haven't really been through our website, because the first question on frequently asked questions is, what are the tuition costs? And they're nothing. None of our instructors are paid. I jokingly say sometimes I'm the only paid instructor. But because they're not paid and because of what we're trying to accomplish, there are no tuition costs. I mean, OABS, as you well know, is funded by congregations and members of the church. And so there are no costs for the school to attend the school. Books, many of our books are available at a discount. Some of our books now, some of the older, good, sound, solid books are going out of print. Luckily, some are going into a digital format, a PDF or something, and so that makes it easy for us to get them, and sometimes they're free. And so books are the only cost, and many of them, I'd say over half of them, are at a discount. Is OABS accredited? And I was asking someone about this. I think I was asking a couple of instructors about it, and that's before when I first was starting. I said, accreditation is a big deal for some people. I said, I really don't understand it. We were talking about it. Well, being accredited, you have to offer several things, and I'm not sure. I told them, so how can we offer financial aid to a school that doesn't have a tuition? And I said, well, I guess we can buy books for people, which we already do many times. And so, but accreditation requires you to do certain things, and it doesn't, as we have here, we do not believe that these agencies, state or national, understand our goals. I mean, does our government really understand what the church is about? No. Do they really understand what we're trying to accomplish with a tuition-free Bible-based school that's all online? No. And so we're not concerned with being accredited. I'm not concerned with being accredited. I've never had someone say, well, I wasn't considered seriously for a position because OABS is not accredited. I've never heard that. Instead, people who graduate from our school and want to be a preacher have had no problem whatsoever applying for preaching positions. It's never become an issue. I don't see it being one in the future either. What does a student receive upon completion of the 4-year curriculum? Well, they do get a diploma. Everyone receives a diploma if they complete the Saturday school. If you finish the weeknight school, you get a certificate of completion because it is nice to show that you completed those things. Our weeknight school is 5 years because of the number of classes that are offered at a certain time. It takes a little bit longer. But I think most importantly, what's on here, I don't think it's something that should be taken lightly, is that it is what's great is knowing that you have taken this course of study and completed it. Being able to say that you have sat down, taken the time to be a part of a Bible school, and you have studied for years and taken tests and all these things, and completed it, and you have your diploma there given to you, that is something to be proud of. Bible education so many times is kind of just, for some people, as if it seems to be something that they just really don't think about very often, but it's something for us to be proud of. Can a person take accelerated courses faster and completing faster than the 4 years? The simple answer is no, because of the way things are structured, it's just not possible. Anytime I've seen someone who wanted to take too many classes, like I mentioned before, we've had people take classes on Saturday and turn around and try to take a class on a weeknight, and it doesn't work out very well. And their quality of work drops, and then it just doesn't work out very well. And so the simple answer is no. But a person can watch classes and audit those classes, that we call it. But you're not given credit for that unless you enroll, take the class, and complete the work. Are there any books required for OABS? For some courses there are, other courses there are not. They're all listed online. We do use a Christian Family Bookstore as our provider, but you'd be surprised how many books you can find on Amazon anymore. Because some of them, I know I was going to buy one book. I was teaching Principles of Interpretation one year, and I was going to buy a book, and it was $25. And I thought, I don't know if I can ask students to pay $25 for a book. Well, lo and behold, I found the Kindle version for $2.99. And I said, well, here you go. You can download the free app. You can download this for $2.99, and there you go. And so I really like that a lot, and it helps keep costs down a lot as well. How long is the school year? As we mentioned already, a school year itself is 2 semesters lasting 18 weeks. We'll begin in the fall, the first Saturday in August 5th this year, and we end in the middle of December. Spring semester begins first Saturday in January, unless Saturday is part of the New Year's weekend. There are 2 Saturdays designated as breaks each semester. If a person takes every course we offer, they will finish in 4 years. In the fall, we always take the break around the Midwest lectureship. And it's great because so many of our instructors are either speaking on it or they're there. And what's kind of been funny is, and to me it's funny, I like it, that students will come hoping to meet instructors and talk with them. And so that's always encouraging. to be able to meet them face to face prior to graduation one day. Another question is asked is, if I have to work every Saturday, can I enroll? And the simple answer is yes. OABS, and I've renamed it. On here, it still says OSC, overseas, or say worker students. I've changed it just simply to say extended time status. That is, if you're overseas and you're obviously your time zone is different, you probably not going to have them get up at 3 a.m. and watch the class if they're over there. And so they're able to enroll and to apply for that status. If they work every Saturday, they can apply for it as well, and then they can watch the class. They're given, as you see there, an extra day to watch the class and to complete any work. And so we try to be very flexible. And of course, sometimes you always have somebody who want to try to take advantage of it, but frequently, thankfully, that doesn't happen very often. Must I take every class? As you said before, no, you do not. Most students work 40 hours a week, and so we try to encourage people to only take the amount of work they can effectively handle. I don't know what time we end here, but we have a few points to ponder here, and this is kind of some things that I try to bring out to people when we talk about OABS, because there are, and not that I have anything against physical brick and mortar schools, but in my mind, there are certain advantages that OABS provides that no one else can provide. One is that, first of all, this is not a correspondence course. Again, it's just a reminder that this is a serious school. Everyone receives a diploma when they graduate. OABS does not require funds for gas, travel to and from school, tuition, or relocation. As a former student who attended a brick and mortar school, raising funds is not easy. I remember when I was raising funds for school, I got the last little bit 2 weeks before we moved. And I can tell you, I was in full-on panic mode because it was about $200 we were so short. And 2 weeks before we moved, Curry Street, many of you may know them, called me and said, we'll pick up what's left. And I was very glad. But that is a very stressful thing to do. And you know that, of course, if the economy affects everything, whether we like it or not, and sometimes congregations cannot help as many people or as much as they'd like. And so it becomes much harder to raise funds. You have to consider how to raise funds, who you want to take funds from, all those kinds of things. You have to consider how much you're going to raise and things such as that. But I say all that to say that OABS allows you to avoid all of that because you're still able to work. And so for the most part, it's not going to affect any of your funds except for buying discounted books. You don't need gas. You don't have to travel anywhere to and from the school. There's no tuition, and you don't have to relocate, which is a very, very big deal. And as a guy who's been looking for houses, I can tell you it's not a good time to relocate. It's not. Everything has gone up. Gas, food, we all know inflation, it's all gone up. And so if you don't have to worry about that, that is a major, major plus. OABS students receive a discount on many books. They can continue to work their full-time jobs. I don't know if you know this or not, but preaching students in a physical school are told that you are not allowed, it's not frowned upon, you are not allowed to work. It is 2 years, it's intense, and they're right to do so because there's no possible way you could work and then try to be in a preacher training school like that. But because OABS is on a Saturday, because we offer 4 classes on a Saturday, you can still work and still provide for yourself, for your family, and still be a part of OABS. OABS students, unlike preacher training students, can take a lighter load when needed. If you get overrun in a preacher training school, either you drop out or you flunk out. You ever thought about that? There's no way you can take a lighter load. OABS lets you do that. They'll let you say, okay, I want to drop this class and just take this class and this class, whatever it may be. Okay, you can take these other ones later. You cannot do that in a 2-year preacher training school. I'm not saying that to say anything against them, but you can't do it. They're not structured that way. They'll tell you, well, you have to leave or you're going to flunk out or you got to try harder to do something. And so OABS has that benefit as well, allowing you to take a lighter load because I think in part, we know that many of our students are already working full-time jobs. And so another benefit of OABS. Students can come from all over the world. Chuck had a map once. I need to update it, but he had little lines going from I think it was from somewhere in Missouri, to all the places where we have students. And it literally is just, it looks like an explosion. They're just lines going everywhere. You cannot do that with a physical training school. And I know some folks who will want to move from overseas to come to physical school here. And when I hear that, I tell them, you don't need to be doing that. In my opinion, that's a big waste of, one, money and time, because why would you do that instead of opening up your laptop and taking some classes? And I've said before, I think it's a big waste of, many times, brethren's money to have someone come from Africa to attend a school here when you can just do it online. So students can come from all over the world. And while some schools do have classes for ladies as well, many times it's just for preachers' wives. OABS is not that way. It's for anyone. You don't have to be a preacher's wife to take a class. There's not such a thing as a preacher's class in OABS because anyone can take them, including ladies. OABS is also for elders, deacons, and Bible class teachers. I remember when I was in school, a young man was he was a year ahead of me, and he was getting ready to drop out. And he said, well, I don't think I want to be a preacher. I said, I understand that. I said, but you understand that you can use a school like this to become a deacon or elder or just a better, knowledgeable person in the future. And he dropped out anyway, which is, that's his choice. But OABS encourages individuals, whether you want to be a preacher or not, to enroll, because it does help us in so many areas of our life and in the church as well. Our final thing here, this is the perfect time that he rang that bell. What OABS needs from you is that we need your prayers. Whenever I talk about any work that I'm involved in, whether it's OABS or podcast or mission work, prayers are the most important thing, because if we don't pray to God about things, if we don't include God in our plans, I like to say, we don't include God in our plans, and everything deserves to fail. And so we need to pray about it first. And so we do ask that you pray for OABS. We do also ask that you obviously tell others about OABS. I know we have some material back there for it. We also encourage you to enroll, or to encourage others to enroll as a student. As I said before, Saturday class, weeknight class, whatever. If you're timid about taking a class, just take a weeknight class, get a feel for it, and then go from there. Last semester, I haven't done it this semester, but I put out online on the Facebook page for OABS a one-class challenge. That was that take one class with OABS, and I promise that most of you will be hooked. You know what? Those who took it up, I think there was, I don't remember how many there were exactly, but over 80% of them came back this fall because they took the first class for the very first time and they came back. And so I said to say that when you get into OABS, and if you're sincere with it and you give it an honest effort, an honest look, you're going to want to stick with it. We had a young lady who graduated last June, I think it was when the last OABS graduation was, or maybe it's April, I forget now. She took it. She couldn't come because her husband is in the military. They were stationed in England. And a few months later, middle of that fall semester last year, she sent us an email thanking us for everything. I was reading through her letter. I cried reading it. But at the end of it, she said, I almost want to do it all over again. I thought that was a very encouraging thing to hear. She went through 4 years, and she enjoyed it so much, she wanted to do it all over again. And of course, being the good director I am, I said, well, you can do that. But very encouraging to hear. We require support for operating costs. I never like to talk about those things, and it's not enjoyable, but that's the nature of the beast, right? And whatever we do requires funds. And so I know Olathe here supports it, and we appreciate that very much. But again, more than anything, we need you to pray about it. We need you to tell others about it and encourage them to become a student at OABS. Any comments or questions this morning about OABS?
I'm just going to interrupt.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea of how many people have actually graduated from OABS?
Oh, I don't. I'd have to ask Chuck that one.
Yeah, because I think it started around 2000.
2000, yeah.
I was just curious how many I'm sure the number's pretty good.
Yeah, it'd have to be.
I'm just curious.
I don't know. That's a really good question. I need to ask him and ask maybe ask Trent. He might have an idea. But I mean, you think about this. This is year 23, and that's a lot of guys. I mean, it takes 4 years to graduate, but so that's a lot of people. And so, yeah, I'll be interested to find that out. All right, if there's nothing else, then we'll break. Perfect timing, and we'll be done until the worship hour.